Speaking of President Trump, he famously said he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single supporter. He was largely proved correct in that statement, which begs the question of why Democrats think investigating the former president will somehow disqualify him in 2024. New York Attorney General Letitia James has issued a number of subpoenas today to former President Trump and his two eldest children, Ivanka and Don Jr. That happened earlier this month amid her civil probe into the Trump's organization's practices. But the three reportedly have refused to comply. Shocking. Let's take a minute to review all the Democratic district attorneys, attorney generals, and congressmen investigating President Trump, because as all of these investigations and the subpoenas come out, it can get a little confusing. The New York AG's office is also involved in the Manhattan District Attorney's criminal probe into the Trump organization's TAC practices. This is the Democratic-led January 6th House Select Committee investigates Trump's actions during the Capitol riot. In Georgia, Fulton County District Attorney is now investigating whether Mr. Trump illegally interfered in the 2020 election. And Washington, D.C.'s District Attorney says his team is looking into Mr. Trump's role in the January 6th attack. This comes amid a slew of civil lawsuits that the former president is already facing. Let's put aside the veracity of these investigations and look at what's motivating the investigators. We aren't mind readers, but you have to wonder if this poll showing a rematch today of the current and former president would yield a very different outcome has anything to do with it. In fact, Mr. Trump wins nationally by nearly 5 points. That's a turnaround of 9 points from the 2020 election. Dr. Lauren Wright, expert on polling, associate research scholar at Princeton University, is with us. Dan Palmer, conservative strategist and financier as well. Nice to see you both. Lauren, start with you. The fact that President Trump now beats Biden when he was never ahead in a head-to-head during the 2020 election says what?
Almost nothing this early in the election cycle, frankly. You know, once Trump announces a run, if he plans to do that, and he's in more of the media and he's out there and he's campaigning and there's a message and a lot of it is really controversial and everyone remembers what the end of his presidency was like, these numbers probably won't look that way. But I do think, you know, the reaction to a lot of failures in the Biden presidency is very real, and that makes Democrats weak. But just to add to that, with what you just said, with all the investigations of Trump, I can't believe that Republicans are still looking to Trump as their most viable option. They would do extraordinarily well to find a non-Trump candidate whose message is solely focused on what Democrats are doing wrong and appeal to the independents and moderate Republicans and some conservative Democrats that they need to win a national election.
Yeah, well, they may be wise to in your mind, but so far they are not. Trump dominates 2024 GOP. 54% of Republicans say they want President Trump as their pick for 2024.
But that's not a lot. You know, that's 50 to 60%. That's not overwhelming support within the party. That's pretty bad, actually.
Dan, you've been really adept at explaining the Trump phenomenon within the Republican Party. Does all these investigations make him stronger within the Republican Party, or are Trump supporters in the Republican Party always Trump supporters and those who don't really care?
I think the significance of the investigations would be similar to the pressure applied to General Flynn. If these investigators are able to put pressure on the children of Donald Trump in a way that would be persuasive for him to cut a deal and not run and basically go quietly into the night, that they would be significant. But in terms of how it affects voters, I don't think it's really playing to persuade either base. You know, the Democratic base wants him strung up and the Republican base sees it as a sort of desperate harassment. So I think Trump runs in 24. Really, there's only two threshold questions. One is, does he have the health to run? Mm-hmm. And secondly, whether or not this prosecution is going to, in some way, adversely affect his children that he dearly loves. So I think those are the only two things that stops him.
Yeah, the kid part of this is the wild card, and going after someone's kids is a special kind of mean, I guess, at some level. You know, Lauren, you think about it, President Trump, married 3 times, noted philanderer, said he won an election that he didn't, proudly has a casual relationship with the truth, said John McCain wasn't a hero, trashed Gold Star families. That largely didn't change opinions of him. And you think about it, right now, 90+% of Democrats say they don't want Trump to win. If he's so weak as you suggest, wouldn't Democrats want nothing more than to face President Trump, a wounded President Trump?
Well, I think Democratic elites definitely probably would love nothing more than for him to run again, because in many ways, that's the only Republican candidate they know they can beat. This is a twice impeached president who lost in 2020 and lost control of the Senate because of 2 seats in Georgia, when he was basically encouraging people not to turn out to vote. So no, that's not their best bet. But yes, I'm sure there are Democratic strategists who are crossing their fingers and hoping he announces and that all of the craziness surrounding him takes the attention off of Joe Biden or Vice President Harris.
And well, certainly there's a lot of media executives who also want nothing more than for Donald Trump to run again. Dan, I see you smile at that. Is there a scenario to your mind that Lauren's prediction plays out, or are we just back when Trump came down the golden elevator and everybody said not a chance for 1,000 reasons, and then he ended up being president?
I think the way American presidential politics work is candidates are self-selected. This is not somebody responding to a giant hue and cry. If he says he's running, he has a gargantuan advantage in just fundraising alone. I mean, right now, this year, the 2022 period is going to be about fundraising. DeSantis, who would be a rival, he's going to be busy with his own reelect. Anybody else who's a member of the former Trump administration, which would really complete nearly the entire alternate field to Trump, is not going to be willing to play whack-a-mole, at Trump's advantage. So I think the only other person who sits in the wings who's not a governor, not a member of the previous administration would be Ted Cruz, who was the runner-up. In the old silk stocking Republican Party, there was a great deal of deference to the runner-up in the previous cycle. We saw that with McCain and Romney. But I don't see this is not the same Republican Party. No. So if Trump strides into the ring, he comes in with an enormous financial advantage, universal name recognition. On the other side, he's probably the single thing that unites the Democrat Party other than possibly the issue of choice. These are the 2 lightning rod issues.
There's nobody There's nobody who's more motivating to Democrats and to get out the vote than Donald Trump. We proved that in 2020. Hey, this is a great conversation. Lauren, good to see you. Dan, good to see you as well. Talk soon.
Happy New Year, Leland.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Leland.